Hey 5th grade, it's Miss Bergman. Sorry I couldn't be here today, but let's talk about what you're going to work on. While I'm gone, some classes are going to finish up their snowmen during the first half of class. If you're finishing up your snowman, you should have a snowman that has chalk for each snowball. You should be using oil pastel for details like a scarf, a face, and a hat. And then once you're done, you can go ahead and use chalk to color in your sky, and you can use snow to color or white to color in your snow. Feel free to add details like trees. If you're adding something to the background and you're not sure if you should use oil pastel or chalk, think about, is it small and something that needs to stay in place, or is it a big area that you can blend in? Big areas, you should be using chalk to blend. Small areas, you should be using oil pastels. If you're finished with your snowman, you get to take your snowman home with you today. If you're done with your snowman, or you finished before winter break, your job today is to finish working on your treehouse sketch. Inside of your sketchbook, you should have your idea sheet, and you are drawing out your ideas on the back. Feel free to use any of the videos on Google Classroom to help you practice your 2-point perspective skills. If you make a mistake, feel free to grab a new paper or start over. The more you practice, the better you get. If you're stumped, talk to a neighbor, see if they can help you out. As you're drawing, you want to make sure that you're thinking about adding details to enhance your project. Draw parts of your tree, be creative, think about what might be in the background. Maybe there are some mountains that go along with your theme. Maybe you are doing a coffee studio and you want to have a little table for people to go ahead and drink their coffee at. Maybe you have an ice skating rink because there are some hockey players in your picture. But go ahead and decide what details you want to show on your treehouse and what details you want to show around the treehouse. If you're done with your details, you're ready to go on to that next step. So the next step, I'm going to ask that you go ahead and do a little bit of self-assessment. That self-assessment paper looks like this, and it's on the front table. When you're doing the self-assessment paper, you first want to go ahead and read your learning goal. I can use 2-point perspective to create 3D building shapes that follow the rules of perspective. If I'm looking at my tree house and it's not looking quite right, I can go ahead and write down some examples of places where I made mistakes. Maybe the back of my tree house is crooked, and I know that it doesn't look quite right. That's evidence that I'm still practicing. Or maybe I still need help to do this by watching the video or asking a friend. That might be evidence you're still practicing. Evidence I understand it means that I have a treehouse that has all the lines going where they need to go, and it doesn't look like I made any mistakes. I could write my treehouse looks really good. I could say that my tree house has vertical lines and vanishing lines and all the other lines that need to be where they should be. If I added some really cool details and I showed my knowledge in a new way, maybe I made a deck. I could write that my evidence is I made a deck using perspective, and I figured out something that nobody taught me all by myself. That would be going above and beyond. So you don't write in more than one box. You pick the box that's best for you and give me some evidence. Same thing for learning goal number 2. Did you use your foreground, middle ground, background, and organize your space? Some evidence that I use my foreground, middle ground, and background is I put a coffee table in my foreground, so I can write that down. I can say that I did some mountains in my background. And I could say that I put maybe, what about, maybe I have a snowman and he is in my middle ground. He's not down here in my foreground. He's behind the tree in that middle space. So I could write snowman and middle ground. All right, and the last thing I want you to go ahead and self-reflect on is, can you show me a theme or interest? You should be writing down some of the details that show your theme here. If you don't have any details and it's just a box, that would be evidence you are still practicing that skill. Maybe your treehouse looks crazy amazing. You added so many details and it looks completely above and beyond. What set your details apart from the other people's details? You do not need to worry about selecting a material or reflecting on that until after you and I have conferenced. So this is not a space you have to fill out. If you have this paper completed, and all of your pencil sketch is done, you are going to come up to the front table and you're going to go ahead and sign up for a review with a partner. If you're signing up for a partner, you're going to put your name in the first available slot. When somebody else signs up in the same number as you, for example, Mr. Man could sign up, he would come over, he would say, hey, let's go ahead and let's look at your self-assessment and your project. This person is going to look and see, do my lines make sense? Do they go to my vanishing point? Is there anything that looks a little bit fishy? If it looks fishy, they're going to try to help me out. They're also going to go ahead and take a look at my self-assessment paper. Do they agree with what you ranked yourself as? Maybe they think that you should be here when you put yourself here. Talk it out, give them some feedback, and work on getting better. If you are done with this, you've done your sign up with your partner and chatted with them, you're going to go ahead and you're going to move on to the last thing for today. That final step is to think about what kind of material you want to use for your treehouse. Now, I have already used some crayons when I was sketching this out, so ignore my brown that I have on my paper, but I want you to go ahead and divide your paper in half. So I just drew a vertical line smack down the middle of my paper. I'm going to pick one material to practice with here. I'm going to pick a different material to practice with here. Please notice this paper is not very thick, so if you're using something like watercolor, you do not want to use a lot of water because it will rip your paper if you're not being careful. But the goal is for you to decide which material you think is the best choice for your individual project. The type of details and shapes you draw might determine which is the best choice. Also think about your 1-point perspective project. What did you like? What didn't you like? Maybe you don't want to use the same material as last time because you felt very frustrated. So try out 2 materials. If it needs to go on the drying rack, please put it on the drying rack. Make sure your name is somewhere on that paper though. If it's a dry piece of paper, it should be going back into your sketchbook so it is safe and sound for the end of class. So I'm going to go ahead and put that piece of paper in my sketchbook at the end of class. My reflection paper should go in there as well. And if you have this piece of paper that is separate, anything you're working on right now, keep it safe and sound in there. Have a great rest of your class. Please make sure you're being respectful and responsible with that substitute. And please, I'm trusting that you put those art materials back where they belong in keeping the art room organized today since I'm not here. When I see you, when we come back, we'll go ahead and talk about those big pieces of paper. So work really hard today so you're ready to move on to that final sketch. And remember, don't worry if you make a mistake. Practice is important. Practice makes you better. Practice does not mean it's perfect on the first try. Have fun!